the latest figures.
You've
So
had
we've got to make
14
sure
years to come
you've
up
had
with
14
some
years in
ideas on this, and
government.
we have. We've got We've got a workforce plan for the NHS. We've got a workforce plan for social care.
You don't have a workforce plan for social care.
It will inform a vote on the floor of the House of Commons from your democratically elected representatives. We'll be able to cap the visas.
It is absolute rubbish. You've had
talk about the issues that the question of
and net migration has gone up.
You have no idea. You have no workforce strategy. You have no industrial strategy. You have no
Are you talking to me or Rishi?
Thank you.
Are you talking to me or Rishi? Because that is exactly
you have been in an election campaign. What's your plan?
Thank you.
You haven't got one.
I'm going to thank you, Angela Rayner. Stephen Flynn.
Follow that.
Angela Rayner faced strong criticism as the audience reacted negatively during a tense interview, making it difficult for her to respond. Here's what happened. The room was packed as BBC's Question Time aired. Angela Rayner was seated on the EA panel prepared to defend Labour's decisions until one question changed everything. A man in the audience, frustrated with the discussion, firmly questioned her on democracy. His calm but direct tone shifted the atmosphere as people nodded and cheered. It wasn't just about the question, it captured the frustration of voters who felt unheard. He voiced what many were already thinking. Rayner's expression tightened. She let out a brief laugh and shifted in her seat, clearly unsettled by the reaction. Rather than addressing the question directly, she deflected, changing the subject. It was a typical political tactic, but it didn't work. The audience saw through it, witnessing a politician struggling to defend the system she stood for. At 8, that moment, the power wasn't hers. It belonged to the people.
With a reputation of being fiery and outspoken.
But getting to her senior political position hasn't been easy, not just because of her gender, but because also of her working class background.
Well, to tell us about life as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, we're joined now by Angela Rayner. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
Have you here. It's funny because you see you in Westminster doing your job, carrying out your role. I didn't actually know too much about your background until I read this, and I'm not sure, I mean, a lot of people will do, but a lot of people won't. But it was that background and your upbringing that really shaped you, who you are as you sit here on the sofa today.
Yeah, and it was crazy when I first went into Parliament because, you know, the whole building is like going to Hogwarts. It's a bit surreal, you know, and I still think that, you know, when I stand at the dispatch box and you think of the people that have stood there and been there before me, it's a bit like, wow, I'm here and I'm doing this, you know, so it does feel a bit surreal from growing up on a council estate and, you know, having my son at 16 and basically, you know, being very poor and having very big challenges. And then all of a sudden mixing with people who went to private education, who have got loads of wealth. And I remember having a joke once with one of the MPs talking about the issues on our estate because there was horses churning up the grass on the estate. And he went, oh, we have llamas on our estate. I'm like, no, I'm talking about the council estate. and the horses that were just left in the wild. So it was a bit, you know, those moments where two worlds collide.
Yeah. When you left school at 16, you were told that you wouldn't amount to anything.
Yeah.
What was life like for you then, and life at home?
You see, this is the thing, because in Parliament, people do see me as quite brash and quite confident, but part of the reason I'm like that is because when I was 16 and I was pregnant, the shame and the humiliation that people made me feel, like, you know, institutions of government, you know, doctors, police, they were there above you and they were there to do things and you had to keep order. They weren't people like you.
Yes.
So I always felt, know your place. So I felt that humiliation and shame then. So now I'm like, no, I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of the people that I represent and the people that I grew up with. So now I don't have any cares about speaking my mind and being, because everyone's got unique talents. It doesn't matter where they're from, whether they're from an affluent...
Angela Rayner frequently emphasizes her working class background, framing herself as Labour's voice for the people. However, when asked who exactly those people are, she struggles to respond. She insists she is different from other politicians, aiming to appear more relatable and genuine by showing her human side. She believes this approach makes her easier to understand.
You describe yourself as working class. Sakir, define working class.
No, working class is families that you know, work for their living, earn their money through going out to work every day, not through other means.
Middle classes do that?
Well, working class families have the ordinary hope to get on in life. I mean, this has been a story.
Don't middle classes have that
Yeah,
as
of course they do. Of course they do.
So what's the distinction?
People will say to me, well, look here, you've come a long way.
Yeah, but you went to state school.
Yeah, but that is the ordinary hope of the working class, which is to have a decent education, to get a decent secure job, to get a car, to get have a nice holiday, to have
Isn't that the middle class too, Sakir? Everything you just listed? No?
It is. Yeah, it is. And that's why many people go on their life journey from what you might call working class to middle class.
Rayner has been repeatedly asked to define a working person, a simple question, yet she struggles to answer. Instead, she dodges, stumbles, and falls back on vague points about fairness and opportunity. Here's the problem. Labour claims to represent the working class, but if its deputy leader cannot clearly define who they are, how can they effectively fight for them? It's more than just awkward, it speaks volumes.
What is the Deputy Prime Minister's definition of working people?
The definition of working people are the people that the Tory party have failed for the last 14 years.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister stood on a manifesto promising not to raise taxes on working people. It now appears she can't even define who working people are. So I'll give her another go. There are 5 million small business owners in this country. Are they working people?
Don't know how the shadow deputy prime minister can stand there with a straight face when it was the small businesses, the working people of this country that paid the price of them crashing the economy, sending interest rates scoring. I think he needs to learn his own lessons in opposition.
Oliver Downer! Well, I think the whole House will have heard the Deputy Prime Minister disregard 5 million hard-working small business owners.
People are living the reality of rising costs, job insecurity, and heavy taxes, which hit the middle and lower classes the hardest. They don't need a definition of a working person. They experience it every day. Rayner, on the other hand, just talks about it, and that's the real problem. She didn't just dodge the question, she had no answer. For someone who claims to represent ordinary people, that says it all.
The Labour Party is very keen to reduce class sizes to under 30 for 5, 6 and 7-year-olds. Why is that important?
Well, the last Labour government managed to achieve this for the younger class sizes, and it's transformative because if the class sizes are too big, then children are either the children that are not as loud as others will get lost in the system, or those that have behavioural problems will not get the support that they need. We know that the evidence is that class sizes over 30 do affect the attainment and the learning for all children in the classroom. So it's important for the outcomes for children to make sure they get the education they deserve.
How many children are we talking about? How many children are taught in classes that size?
Well, there's variance in terms of class sizes over 30 and there's even some that are over 40, to be quite honest with you, and it's quite a substantial...
What number of pupils are we talking about?
Well, there's quite a substantial amount of pupils that are... I haven't got the numbers on me at hand, Nick, but it is quite a substantial amount of children that are in class sizes that are over 30 now.
Angela Rayner, are we talking about 50 children, 5,000 children, 5 million children? I mean, how many are we talking about?
It's a significant number. It's not 500 or 5,000. It's significant.
You've said that 3 times. Do you not think it would be an idea to have a sense of how many children we're talking about? You are the Shadow Education Secretary.
Yeah, well, I do have a sense of that, but I don't have the figures.
Could you give me the number then, please?
In Parliament, Rayner was asked directly whether the UK's 5 million small business owners count as working people. Instead of answering, she deflected, shifting to an attack on the Conservatives rather than providing a clear response. And that's the issue. Labour claims to support struggling families, yet their policies often do the opposite. Higher taxes, rising costs, and decisions made by those far removed from everyday life in Britain.
No, it's not the case. It's not the case at all. We do have those numbers to hand. It's just that, I know how much it costs us to reduce the class sizes. We've got all the costings and figures. There's quite a number of things that we've announced over a period of a few weeks, and you've got those figures. You know what those figures are because we've announced it in the past, so you know the figures are there. I said it's a significant number. It is a significant number.
Yes,
Labour, when we're in power, we actually do deliver on it, unlike the Conservatives. When they're in power, they promise you and then they break their promises. Labour in power, we reduce class sizes and we've promised to do it again.
Lastly, of that 520,445, do you want to tell me how many are in reception classes? No, I didn't think
Nick, go on, tell me. You've got those numbers to hand, Nick. Do you want me to get a precise on every single nuance?
I did the research, so we know how much. It's the who, what, where, when, why, how. We know how much money, but we don't know how many pupils. I have got the number for you, yes, and I will share it with you, Angela Rayner. It's around 100,000 are in those reception classes.
Critics argue that Rayner has become part of the political establishment she once challenged. Angela Rayner, who once spoke for working people, now seems disconnected, and working-class voters are beginning to take notice.
No, I'm not just going to pluck a number out of thin air, but I can tell you that the number is significant.
You're the Shadow Education Secretary. One of your key pledges is to try and reduce class sizes, which will really resonate with my listeners for 4, 5 and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and I'm asking you how many children this affects. And all you can tell me is a substantial number. Shall I help you? I've got a number. Shall I give it to you?
Go on then, you give it me. Go on, If you've got it, you give it me. And it is a substantial number. Go for it.
Don't you think it's rather strange that it's left to the journalists, the media, to inform the Labour Party of the number? You're talking about 520,445 primary school pupils in England alone, classes of 31 or more. So it's a sizable chunk. Do you not think you should have had that number?
It is. Well, I told you it's a sizable chunk, Nick, and you had that number, so you know exactly what I was talking about, and we've been absolutely clear about that. I'm just not going to play that numbers game with you and just try and pluck one out of the air.
But is this not another example, respectively, Angela Rayner, where Labour policies are almost thought up on the hoof? They're very appealing, but when you're asked just the most basic questions, that is, how much does it cost, and in this instance, to how many pupils does it apply, Labour is always found wanting, some would argue.